Making gravy. You know, this is a technique that's been used by the old timers forever, and it works as good today as it did then. And essentially what they do is you take a fine sandpaper and you want a wet or dry, you want a silicon carbide. Now the one I've got here, I usually use a 600 or something for this, but this is a 1200, I just grabbed it. And this is by Klingspor. But I think, most all of them have it. Again, it's a waterproof. But you want a fine one. You want a very fine. Because the finer you sand, the finer the grit is, or the sanding does, and the better paste it'll make, the better gravy, smoother gravy. Now I'm going to use a little armor seal. Now one of the things with this is that you want a good oil that hardens. Now, you could use a poly, the Minwax poly, Formby's tongue. You want an oil, again, that dries. You want a good varnish oil. And if you look at the armor seal, see it gets really nice and hard. I mean, it's pretty tough. Then you simply make some gravy. Probably should have gotten a little 600. That 1200's a little fine. But you see what I'm getting? I'm getting this paste. And that's my grain filler. Now I want you to look. Right here there's a little knot. Very small. Check in it. In this walnut crotch. So I squeegee my gravy in, let it harden, sand it off. Now one of the things with this is that it does shrink, but the other thing, sanding it, the oil really works in nice. It makes a really good, and I mean this surface is now just like glass. I mean it's just like glass. Now, I did it with a random orbit. The old timers, they would have to sand and sand and sand. And I'll tell you what else you can do. If you've got a drum sander, you can put on a really fine sandpaper and run a little bit like the walnut. You run a little piece of walnut through there and just do something small to turn your dust collector off and catch the sanding dust. And put the oil, sprinkle a little bit on, start sanding with it. It does a really, really nice job. But the key is to get a really fine grit. You want it to be the sanding dust to be really fine. That's making gravy. Again, you let it dry, sand it with a fine sandpaper, and continue on with your oil finishing. Or yeah, you could put in the case of armor seal, you let it dry 72 hours or so. You can put a water base over it. Works good. Now, while we're here, it has nothing to do with making the gravy, but I'm going to mention this check right here, this crack, this bark inclusion. Now, how would I fill that? Now, obviously, that's too large for what we're doing here. So how would I fill that? What I would use in that would be one of the epoxy sticks. I'd use walnut. Then after I get some finish on it, or if I needed to, then I'm going to come back with a touch-up marker and kind of start playing with it a little darker on it and kind of recreate that crotch in there. Works pretty good. All right, making gravy. Simple as it can be.